And there are not, as from before. Do any members wish to declare any interest in relation to any matters included on this agenda? Nope. Okay. And we have no part 2 items today, so the press and public won't be excluded. And I know that Sarah is watching, Sarah Booker Lewis, because she contacted me earlier to say that she was. And so now I will, sorry, I'm having issues here. I'm trying to use. Okay, so minutes of the previous meeting. Does the committee agree to approve the minutes of the previous meeting on the 12th of March 2020 as the correct record? So do we have any points about it, any corrections?
Agreed.
All agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody. And I now move on to Chair's comms, which is fairly short on this. Okay, so dear all, the COVID emergency and lockdown have had a devastating impact on taxi services in the city, as well as on the hospitality sector. I have spoken frequently to representatives of the taxi trade who have told me how badly this sector has been hit, and that only 27% of the Brighton and Hove taxi trade were operating until just recently. Some taxi drivers have taken their taxis off the road entirely, so they don't have to pay insurance and tax on a taxi that is not doing any business. Jim Whiteleg, Martin Seymour and Alex Evans have all been brilliant in working to help the taxi trade by being as flexible as possible regarding medicals, perspex screen installations, the extension of taxi licenses and a whole host of other matters. I've been totally behind all these moves, which have been designed to either assist the trade or to take unnecessary pressures off them. I hope that as more people go shopping and visit the city's restaurants, bars and cafes, that there will increasingly be more work for the taxi trade so that they can get back on their feet. The issue of safety is very important for taxis as it is for everyone else. So it is hoped that as many taxi drivers as possible will wear masks and ask their customers to, especially if they don't have perspex screens. Street traders have been back in operation for a while now, and I went down to Upper Gardner Street to see how things were going on the first Saturday they were open. It was very quiet because the weather was not conducive to street trading, but all seemed to be in order. Jim Whiteleg and Alex Evans will give you a full update on taxis and street trading and will also provide an interim report at November's committee. And I'm just going to give a brief report on some other issues before we go over to Jim. And in fact, it's Alex who's going to give the whole report to you. So this one is on electric vehicle taxi rapid charging hubs, which is quite a topic of conversation at the moment. So the electric vehicle charger installation programme has been delayed due to the COVID-19 situation. Over 100 lamppost chargers were installed before March, and we hope to resume work on installing the remaining 100 chargers in late June, with all 200 installed by the end of July. For the rapid taxi chargers, we have received quotes back from UK Power Networks for the 4 areas identified by the taxi driver consultation as most suitable for charging hubs. Letters have been sent to residents nearby to advise them of the proposed locations and requesting feedback by 19th of June. This will be reported back to the ETF committee in September. Subject to approval, we hope work will begin in November on the installation of the proposed taxi rapid hubs. And then we come to animal licensing. Since the start of the current COVID-19 lockdown period, all animal activity licensing inspections have ceased. Where complaints are received, these are evaluated. If it is deemed that there is an imminent serious risk to the health or welfare of any animal or member of the public, a site visit is required and appropriate. and appropriate COVID-19 control measures will be adhered to when undertaking visits. I am pleased to report that no such situation has arisen to date. In line with guidance from DEFRA, current animal activity licences due for renewal have been extended by 3 months. Where applications for new licences are received, the service will endeavour to try and reach a decision with all the available information. This could include gathering of information by remote means. There are currently 10 licences issued for dog boarding, 8 for pet vending, 2 for cat boarding, 1 for dog and cat boarding, 1 for dog breeding, 1 for doggy daycare, and 1 for keeping or training animals for exhibitions. Under the grading system, maximum being 5, there are 3 licenses graded 2, 8 with graded 3, 4 graded 4, and 7 graded 5. Due to the rules on calculating scores, it is difficult for a new applicant to get a score above 3. I have to say I was surprised by the low numbers for all those licences, but hopefully that will go up, once restrictions start to be lifted regarding lockdown. So I'm now going to go to Democratic Services to see what will be called over. So I pass over to you, Jenny.
Yes, Chair. We have no public involvement items under item 5. We have got one item at 6B under member involvement, and that is a question set out on pages 15 and 16 of your agenda, put by Councillor Simpson, and obviously you'll be providing a response to that. The only other remaining item on this afternoon's agenda is the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Driver Enforcement and Monitoring Report.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I will hear Councillor Simpson and her question, and then I will ask Alex Evans to give his update on taxi driving. Okay, so thank you. So Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my question, as you say, is on page 15 of the agenda, and it's in relation to the loss of taxi ranks, mostly in St James's Street, and possibly it would have been in London Road as well. So my question is, will the Chair please give an explanation as to why the taxi trade has not been consulted on changes to street layouts, resulting in the loss of very important taxi ranks in response to COVID emergency measures? And will she give an assurance that consultation will take place on any future changes before they happen? Because we all know this has happened before and it was promised it wouldn't happen again. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Simpson, thank you very much for that. And yes, I think we were all taken aback. Licensing, taxi and so on, we didn't know anything about this. So the Council, via Traffic Management, has the power under Section 14 of the Road Traffic Act to temporarily remove a bay due to public safety. In this case, it relates to social distancing and the need to provide separation as much as possible for people moving through the area in these unprecedented times. The Council had to act very quickly as St James Street was identified as a high risk for people queuing in the area, and they need to have it ready for the opening of retail. The decision was not taken lightly, but there was little choice as this location was a particular challenge. Traffic Management have emphasised that the change is temporary and they are keen to find an alternative location with the train. Now, just to add to that, I know that we were somewhat alarmed by the fact that we weren't even notified of this, let alone consulted, and they have argued that it had to be done so quickly. But I'm assured that there will be notification in future, and I'm going to go to Jim to say, Jim, please, we will have consultation, won't we? I do think it's important to have both notification and consultation. So, Jim, can you answer that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we'll make those contacts with highways, and even though, as they say, they might have that emergency power, I think obviously everyone feels that it would have been better to have consulted or if just even let us and the trade know. So hopefully we won't have that repeated. As I understand, it just concerns the one rank in St James's Street rather than the London Road one. But yeah, rest assured, officers in the taxi team will liaise with traffic management.
Yeah. So, Councillor Simpson, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I would like to ask, thank you for that. You did mention that it was going to be temporary, but that an alternative site was going to be looked for. So can I ask you how that is going, and how, you know, temporary, what does temporary mean? I think we taxi drivers need to know that. You know, what is being done to replace the lost spaces, and also I think they need to know what help the council is giving them, you know, to ensure their safety. They're coming back to work now, and we need to ensure that they're safe working. Their income is going to be restricted because they can't carry as many passengers, especially in some of the bigger vehicles. So, you know, we really need to know how long it's temporary for the parking spaces, and what the council is doing to help taxi drivers maintain their businesses and their trade. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to pass over to Jim for that, to see if you can answer some of that.
Thank you, Chair. It's I won't be able to answer how long, Councillor Simpson. Just obviously we're governed really by what's happening with the restrictions and the pandemic. The traffic management have made assurances that they want to work with the trade in identifying an alternative site, and we'll try and make sure that happens. I'll let, if I can pass over to Alex, really, he's going to give a brief update on the impact it's had on the trade, and some of the measures that we've taken to hopefully reduce the burden on them.
So, okay, Alex, do you want to speak? And then I've got questions from leading carmen.
Yeah, hello, Chair. Thank you for inviting me along this afternoon. Yeah, just to give a brief update in relation to the taxi trade. Obviously, as we're all aware, the impact to them, excuse me, has been huge. They obviously get their main income from transporting the public around the streets and the country, and during the lockdown, that was sort of brought down to a standstill, as everybody was advised to stay at home and only do essential journeys. Us, along with the rest of the country and people that provide services, have had to quickly change our processes and our procedures that on how we do things, with the majority of our staff now working at home. Just to give a quick overview, we obviously have got three different types of areas that we look at. We license vehicles, we license drivers, and we license operators within the city. Currently, we've got 575 Hackney carriage vehicles we license, 462 private hire vehicles are licensed, and we've got roughly 1,400 drivers that are licensed to drive those two types of vehicles. We had to stop all face-to-face contact initially when the lockdown started, and we moved our services to an online service. So that meant we weren't able to take applications face-to-face, we weren't able to inspect vehicles, and we weren't able to carry out any enforcement work on the streets. So what we provided was a service where drivers and vehicle proprietors were able to email their applications into the office where they could, and also provide a postal service, so they were able to post it via Royal Mail, or hand deliver it if they preferred, and post it in the out of hours post box at Hove Town Hall. And then officers on a rotational basis came into the office to process those applications. The majority of the applications are now being processed online, and again we put in practices to try and make it easier for drivers. So initially, the certificate of compliance that taxis have to obtain in order to be licensed We relaxed that in the first couple of weeks of lockdown due to the garages being closed, and allowed taxis and private hire vehicles to obtain MOT certificates in that time. Again, we relaxed the condition that they had to go and get their CCTV checked, which is a requirement they do annually on the anniversary of the licence date. So we did that to try and help them, sort of the drivers that wanted to continue to work, wanted to continue to get their vehicles licensed, were able to do that. In relation to drivers' licences, a lot of the processes we do had moved online previous to this pandemic. So in relation to DBS checks, so that's the criminal records check, that is all done online now rather than a face-to-face contact. The driver is able to log onto the internet, complete the initial stages. They then go to a post office who then complete the ID checks, and then it's all done electronically to us. So they don't need to bring in a DBS certificate to us. That's notified electronically. And again, with the DVLA checks, an email is sent to them. They complete the details on the email, and then we get the results straight back. So that helped speed up things. The medicals was one of the issues that we came across. So what we ask is drivers to obtain a medical through their GP, and then that is sent off to the council's independent doctor, who then assesses them the Group 2 standard. What we found was a lot of GPs were closed. We're obviously only seeing essential patients during this time. So what we said is, if you could get a summary of your doctor's notes for the last 12 months, which could be sent to us by email, then our independent doctor was able to then make a temporary assessment on them to ensure that they could continue to drive. So they would get a 3, 6, 9 or 12-month licence, and then hopefully that would allow sufficient time to then get a proper medical in due course. Operators, we've got 59 operators licensed in the city. 49 of them are small operators, so they operate 1 or 2 vehicles, and then we've got 10 larger operators in the city. We've kept in contact with the larger operators to try and assist them through this time. They've obviously taken a big hit with the number of drivers able to work, but certainly from this week they're saying things are picking up now. They're certainly seeing a lot more bookings coming in and a lot more drivers coming to work. So that's good news, and hopefully that will continue. It was mentioned about safety of drivers, and obviously that is paramount. There's a condition that is already within our blue book on safety screens, where drivers can, if they wish, have a partition put in between the driver and the passengers. A lot of them are taking us up on that offer. I say taking us up, taking up the offer that's on the conditions within the blue book, and we're just reminding them what those conditions are to make sure that they can safely get those partitions put in their vehicles if they wish to do so. And I think we've possibly got about 100 vehicles to date that have had those fitted. The larger vehicles, ones that occupy sort of 6, 7, 8 people, some of them already have the partitions built in when the vehicle was made, so they haven't had such an issue. I think that's basically it. We have sort of kept in contact, kept our website up to date in regards to our procedures. We've been in contact with drivers to offer advice, and we've put some safety advice together that we've sent out to operators in line with what the Transport has sent out, and that's in relation to face coverings, only allowing people to sit in the rear of the vehicle, that it's quite okay to refuse to take people in their vehicle if they they've got a reasonable cause for concern. So, initially when there was like perhaps 5 people wanted to get in one vehicle and they're all from different families, that went against obviously the government guidelines at the time, so that was a reasonable excuse. So it's given the advice to the drivers, so they're up to date and they're happy with decisions that they're making. That's all I've got to say at the moment.
Okay, it seems like part of that, of what you've been talking about, has kind of blended into agenda item 7. But what I'm going to do now is I have got questions about this, and also I think perhaps referring to Councillor Simpson's question. So I'm going to come in with Carmen first, who's got a question. It's Carmen, then it's Councillor Wares, and then it's Peter, Councillor Atkinson, Councillor Davis, and Councillor Rainey.
I think Lee was first, Chair, so I'm happy for him to go first.
Okay, Lee first, sorry.
I'm not precious, but if you're calling me now, Chair.
Yes, you're right, Lee, you were first.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Carmen. So I really just wanted to come back on some of this dialogue about St James's Street, because I keep hearing it. It makes it more and more annoying the more times I hear it. 2 things. Somebody in Highways had all the time in the world, because it was in the ETS report, to say engagement with the bus operator showed their resistance to removing buses from the street, blah, 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 blah. So they decided to leave the street open for buses. So that's not a small conversation to have with the bus company. Seems like our taxi trade is being shortchanged by this administration again, because then nobody could be bothered to pick up the phone and speak to even the licensing team, let alone the representatives from the taxi trade. So that's just blatantly unfair on them. And of course, it was unfair on all the blue badge holders that don't have any space in St James's Street, as well as the traders who've got nowhere to load and unload. So I think the taxi trade have got a really good reason to be hugely aggrieved by this, that again they've been pushed to the back of the queue. Council can talk to a bus company, can't talk to the taxi company. And the other is, we have no idea how long this will go. Now, on other schemes that came out of ETS, we're talking about experimental TROs, which this will probably end up being when the initial notice expires, which means they could be like this for the next 12 to 18 months. I'm not here to debate that part of it, but the issue is, if that does prevail for 12, 18 months, then the taxi trade have been denied another rank. And as we know, those on Hackney licences are told that they have to return to their nearest rank when they're not actually with a customer. And of course, if this council keeps taking all the ranks away, then where are they going to go? And I know Jim said something about London Road. He's not sure. I think we need to double check that. And of course, and I think the other day down the St Peter's Church rank, contractors decided to use the rank for piling up all of their building materials. So can somebody somewhere start giving our taxi trade a little bit more respect? Tell them what's going on before it happens, consult with them as Councillor Simpson has said, and certainly find out how you're going to replace the rank from St James's Street, where it's going to be and for how long, with some urgency. I'm sure they would appreciate that, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, I would very much agree with those points. Thank you very much, Councillor Ware. And Jim, do you have a response to that in it?
Yeah, sure. I think we all recognise that the sooner we get an alternative rank up and going, the better. So we'll get those conversations starting. Well, they should have started already, but we'll make sure that they move forward as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I go to Councillor Asich.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my question is actually more about the item than it is about Councillor Simpson's question, so it was probably the right way around. What my question really is I suppose it's a comment and a question. We've got, when we got the government funding to support business, we couldn't award it to taxi drivers because they were clearly not regarded as business under the definitions that we had at the time. We then put forward some conditions for discretionary grant, and again taxi drivers apart from I think one company, couldn't apply for the discretionary grants either, and they were oversubscribed several times over. Now there's almost £10 million left from the business grants in the kitty, for which nobody seems to be eligible. Can we please lobby the government to reserve some of that funding for our 1,100 taxi drivers and support the taxi trade to fit screens, to buy themselves PPE and wipes, because in Europe they're already doing that. They've been doing it all the way through. Their governments have given councils money to actually make sure that this is happening, and I feel actually ashamed that we're unable to support our drivers, many of whom are from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. So that was one question. And I do also have another question, which is addressed to the chair. In your comms last time round, you talked about the TfL Uber appeal. Do we know whether anything's happened on that?
Well, I have certainly heard nothing, and I've kept my ears open for this. Jim, have we heard anything? I don't think we have.
No, Chair. It was supposed to be in July, so I'm not sure if it's will be going ahead or not on that. As soon as I know, I'll let you know. Regarding the other point Councillor Pitch made, and I think she's absolutely right. Yeah, we recognise that the taxi trade are a vulnerable group and need protecting. This was discussed at the event and economy cell, and I know it was one of the actions to take it forward to look at lobbying the government to see if we could use any of that discretionary fund to help taxi drivers out with screen funding. So I think that's point has been taken up by Max Woodford, and I think he's in contact with Andy Peters, who's the GMB representative.
But
thank you very much.
As a committee, take this up, Jim. I think it might be quite good if I wrote a letter as chair, maybe if it came cross-party, from Councillor Simpson and Councillor Dean, that we all ask for, some money for the taxi trade, because I think they have been very hard hit, Jim, and so I would suggest that. Councillor Simpson, Councillor Dean, do you agree with that?
Oh yes, I'd agree with that, Chair. Thank you. Good idea.
Yeah.
There's no other source of money for them.
Yeah. Well, if we can get some of that money that's left over from the business thing, that would be great. But I think we have to lobby the government for that, actually, Dee. So, and we've got the money. We just want to be able to use it for taxi drivers. So I think that would be a very good move, because I would be...
Through you, Jed, are we aware of what other authorities have done?
Well, yes, I think we are. Jim, do you want to say what other authorities have done?
Yeah, I mean, a couple have been highlighted by Andy Peters, Bradford and Leeds. I was in contact with Leeds, and as I understand it, it was an existing policy they had in place to part fund screenings that they've had for years, and it wasn't taken up. But obviously, because of the pandemic, drivers are taking them up on that offer. Yeah, I don't know of other authorities. I've contacted other Sussex authorities. I'm not aware of them providing funding for such screens, but it's obviously something that would be very welcome. And it's a shame, really, that they weren't included in the legislation around public transport and masks being a full requirement.
I think, through you, Chair, I think my question really was not only in relation to screens, but do we know what other authorities are doing to support their taxi drivers overall?
I know the team and Alex are in contact with other authorities, so they talk regularly about what's going on with fees and everything else. So those conversations are happening. Obviously, we can look further into that.
We have done quite a lot actually, Jim, haven't we, in looking at what other people are doing and in making life as bearable for taxi drivers as we possibly can. So we've certainly looked at other initiatives, but it is this thing of, you know, PPE and perspex screens and generally just sort of, you know, some support for the taxi trade. And as Carmen Apich said, particularly because we have large numbers of BAME taxi drivers who need that extra support. So, you know, I think we do need to lobby on their behalf for any monies that are available to assist them. So I'm now going to move on. Sorry, I'm having to hold this because I've got so much light coming into my back room and I can't see anything. So I've had Lee, so now I think I've got Peter Atkinson.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks to Alex for the report. Chair, it was obvious to me from the workshop we had on licensing a few months ago now that we've got one of the best licensing systems in the country. But it was also obvious to me, having spoken to the person who ran that workshop, that we've also got one of the best taxi services in the country. But this is a local industry that is on its knees at the moment, as you were saying earlier, Chair, due to the pandemic. And my question for Jim is from a slightly different angle, and it's in relation to the various temporary traffic schemes that are going on at the moment, the bicycle lanes and Madeira Drive, and the possible plans for more permanent schemes. I guess I'd just like reassurance that proper liaison and consultation is taking place both between the Highways Department and Jim and his colleagues, but also the representatives of the taxi industry itself, because I'm really worried that there may be unintended consequences that we just can't predict for some of these schemes. And I think it's really important, as has already been said, that the taxi industry and their representatives are properly consulted and involved in discussing what's going on at the moment. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I think we'll put the video on. Yeah, we'll certainly make sure that we're included in those discussions and that the trade is well represented, and we'll, you know, we'll keep them, make sure we keep them in the loop to avoid what happened with St James's Street.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it could potentially be more than that. So, Councillor Davis now. Would you like to ask your question or questions?
Thanks, Chair. It really wasn't a question. It's just my feelings that I wanted noted. I wanted to share my sympathy and my empathy with our, you know, brilliant local taxi trade. I run a driving school and have done for a decade. So myself and my 10 subcontractors have been sat on our hands since March the 23rd. So I really feel for them. And I just want to offer that. I also wanted to take this moment to thank Jim and the team for bringing this statement to committee and all his hard work. And also, I think Councillor Apich has got a fantastic point. I just wanted that noted. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Councillor Davis. So I now go to Councillor Rayner.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this report. And I totally agree with Councillor Apich and Councillor Davis as well. I just had a quick question about the enforcement actions section of the report. The first item, the failure to declare 18 points on DVLA licence. I'm just wondering whether there isn't some kind of automatic system of the licensing authority being informed of points being given on the DVLA licence, because that seems like a kind of easy way to solve problems like this one listed. Thank you.
Chair, can I pass over to Alex to answer?
Please do.
Hi, yeah. The system has changed within the last 12 months on how we check DVLA licences now, and we've got an online system with a company called Know Your People. and when a licence is issued, they have to give authorisation via email for us to check their licence over the period of that licence, so up to 3 years. And there's a built-in system now. When they get points, we automatically get informed about those points. There's a structure built in within the system, so they reach a certain amount of points, and we're told every 6 months. It is in their conditions as well. If they are convicted of any motoring offence, then they have to notify us, and failure to do so is a breach of the conditions of their licence. But the second check is obviously the DVLA interface will also let us know as well. So going forward, we will be able to pick up on those at a much quicker rate if the driver fails to tell us about it at the time. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, that does. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have any more questions from anybody? We have obviously sort of merged the update and item 7. So any other questions about enforcement and monitoring or taxis? Okay, so I'm going to
Councillor Wares has got a question
okay.
3 times, I think.
Put down. Yes, Councillor Wares. Please ask that question.
Thanks, Chair, very much. It was just a quick response to Councillor Atkinson and a very good suggestion that the trade must be consulted. It was just to inform him and colleagues that the way all these new schemes are going in is they're going in, and then once they're in, the world will then be surveyed to find out what they think of them, and then after that decide whether to take them out or leave them on permanent. Sorry, I should say they're going to remain permanent according to the notice of motion. So I think the trade are going to get shortchanged a second time, because they're not going to find out what's going on until the rest of the world after the event. But maybe Councillor Atkinson and I can speak offline afterwards, because there may be something that we can do to try and support the trade so they don't get turned over by his colleagues. That was all. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Ware. And I think, yeah, we are fighting to try and get PPE. This is something I've spoken to Jim Whiteleg about, and also Councillor Appich, and we're very keen to be able to make PPE accessible to the taxi trade. And I would like to point out that actually it's not just, it's for the safety of our taxi drivers, who I think the point was made in the earlier committee about the importance of looking after staff. And so I do think that, you know, these aren't staff, okay, but they're workers, and we need to look after them. But we also need to look after visitors to the city, residents to the city who actually use these taxis. So I do think it's important about the PPE issue. So I will end on that note, that we are fighting to get it for them. And so I'm going to come to item 8, which is items referred for council. Do any members determine an item be referred? Well, obviously, sorry. We all note the report, obviously, the recommendations that the contents of the report be noted.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm blinded by the light, literally here. So then, do any members determine an item to be referred to full council for information? I don't think we do we? Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to a close. I thank everybody for their attendance today on this very hot day, and you've all been brilliant and asked lots of excellent questions, very impressive. And thank you to Penny, and thank you to Jim, and to Penny and Alex Evans, and all those people who've been involved in this committee meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Until November, I'm sure I'll see you all around, but I won't see you at a licensing committee until then. So thank you very much, everybody.
Right, thanks all. Bye.